Today we're going to be learning a new CAD application. We're moving away from using AutoCAD this week for just a little bit, and we're going to be using a product called SketchUp. SketchUp has been around for a number of years. It's changed hands. Currently owned by the Trimble Corporation. They are the makers of many pieces of surveying equipment, but they bought SketchUp a few years ago, and they're doing a nice job of keeping it rolling along. It's a really good application. It's quick, it's intuitive, it's pretty easy to use once you get a few things figured out. And so we're going to delve into that today. But where we're going to start, we're going to have to start on the web. You're going to open your web browser, preferably Chrome browser. It works really well with it. And where we're going to go is just sketchup.com, as you see right here, and it should take you to this page. Might look a little different, but this should get you where you need to be, at least close enough. And then what we're going to be looking for is a product called SketchUp Free. So what it's going to do is it's going to ask you to, you can click on Start Modeling, but more than likely it's going to ask you to sign in or create a new Trimble account. And so go ahead and just create the account, use your school ID so you don't get spammed to death for the rest of your life, and then go ahead and sign in. Once you're signed in, it's going to bring you to this page right here. And so go ahead and just pause this video until you get that part done, and just go ahead and hit play again when you're ready to go. So this is going to be a multi-part demonstration. Today we're just going to be covering the basics, and we're just going to be playing around a little bit with SketchUp. So what you'll do when you first start out, you can just click Create New, or you can use the drop down. I'm just going to use this architectural feet and inches one, which is the default, and we'll just go ahead and click on that. So right away what you're going to see is this gentleman standing here, and this basically is just a prop that's there for scale, so you can kind of get a sense of how far in or out you're zoomed. But first thing we want to do is kind of get used to the user interface that we see here, and then also the navigational methods that we're going to use. So start by taking your mouse, and you will need a mouse with a scroll wheel for this, so it's going to make navigating and using SketchUp a whole lot easier. What you'll do is just roll your scroll wheel in and out. You can see that rolling it backwards zooms you out, rolling it inward zooms it in. Now there's more to it than just that. You can also directionally zoom out and in. So for example, if I move my cursor over here, you can see that it zooms out away from that point. And if I move my cursor over here and roll it back, it zooms in to that point. So for example, if I'm over here and I want to get to the gentleman standing there, I can just zoom out, move my cursor to him. I don't have to click, I just hold it there and then roll it back in. You can see that that's where I zoom to. So practice doing that a couple of times. It's a really important skill because we use that a lot in SketchUp to get around our model. We can just kind of zoom in and out directionally just by moving our cursor. Pretty soon you get pretty good at it. It's a fairly intuitive process. The next thing we want to talk about is how to orbit around your model. So just remember, we're not actually changing the model, we're not rotating the model, we're actually orbiting ourselves. You could think of your position here as a camera, and you're going to orbit that camera around whatever it is you're looking at. To do that, we're basically just going to click and hold the scroll wheel, and we'll just kind of move it around. So again, the scroll wheel is a button also on most mice, and if you click it and hold it, basically click and drag, you can see as you move around, you're actually orbiting around. You can really, you really can't get a sense of the orbit because the person, these props, they're always facing towards you, but you can look at the axes and you can tell that you're orbiting from that. Okay. All right. The next thing are the axes. So you can see that the green axis is running this direction right now. The red is sort of opposite of that. Those are both representing the X and the Y coordinates on the ground. And then the blue axis, the Z axis, is the vertical one. So that one is pointing up and down. The other way we can get around, and sometimes this is useful, is to use this little, it looks like a little director's board, I guess. Anyway, we can click on that. It's going to bring this guy open, and then you can just kind of select from these standard views. So for example, if we want to look at it straight on, call that the south elevation view. We can look at it from the top. Again, that guy just sort of turns into a thin line. We can look at it from the left, the right, all of those things. And then from any of those views, you can always just kind of get back into your rotation mode like this. Get back to where we were, right over here. So we do have those preset views over there that we can use on occasion. And we just collapse that back over when we're done. So let's go ahead and draw a few things. We're going to go ahead and start off with the line tool. And I think we were like this. Red was going like this. We're going to start off with the line tool. That's this little pencil tool right here. And when we click on it, we get a pencil. If you want to get rid of the pencil, you go back to the selection tool, which is the arrow at the top. Okay, and that puts it just kind of back to the normal default position. So to draw, we're going to pick this tool to start, and we're just going to pick a point out here in space, up here to the right of the green and above the red. And I just click the point. I'm not clicking and dragging. I'm just clicking and letting go. Now I can move my cursor around, and it's expecting a second point. And when I click a second point now, this is just a standard left click. I pick a second point. Now I've got a line. It's asking for a third point, and I can go about continuing, picking points, and then when I'm done, I just can go back here and click on that selection tool to terminate the command. Now, let's go ahead and rotate around this thing and take a look at it. So on mine, and yours is probably going to be a little different, but on mine, when I clicked, this point right up here actually was up higher than the rest of them. All the other ones you can see are on the ground, but this one kind of jumped up on me. And that's one of the things about drawing in SketchUp that's a little bit disorienting, is that we can't always know for sure when we're picking points out in space if we're actually on a particular plane or not. So it's just something you have to be a little bit careful about. If you stick to the axes guides, for example, if I draw a line from this point right here and I move it in this direction, you can see I'm on the green axis. Even though it's not parallel to the green axis, we're in perspective mode right now, so things that get farther away from you get smaller. But that one is on the green axis. If I move my cursor over here, you can see I'm parallel to that line right there. And if I keep going, I'm going to be on the red axis. And watch this. If I go all the way up here, now I'm on the blue axis. So I can at least, even in 3D space, determine whether or not I'm parallel to one of the three axes. So I'll just go ahead and draw this line right here on the red. I'm going to come back this way until I find the green. It's really hard to find for some reason. There it is. And then I can come back this way on the red. And then at some point I should hit. It's not actually acquiring it now. I'm kind of straight across from that. And then I can just kind of come back and close it. Now, here's an interesting thing that happens if you create a closed loop, is it goes from creating lines to closing it in with what they call a surface. Okay, so this surface right here that it created is a separate entity. Now I've gone back to my selection tool right here, and I have now 4 lines that are creating a closed loop, and as soon as that happened, it created this surface in here. So I can actually pick on all 5 of these things separately. I can click this line, you can see it highlights. I can pick this one, then it deselects the first one and adds the second one to the selection. And I can just go around and do that, or I can pick inside, and you can see that it highlights that surface that it created. All of those things can be moved, resized, copied, deleted by selecting them and then creating an action to affect it in some way. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete the surface inside this rectangle. And then, so I have it selected. Now I'm just going to tap the delete key on my keyboard to get rid of that thing. So now again I can see through that thing again. So it's not filled with a surface anymore. If I want to bring that surface back, I can draw a line connecting 2 edges, any 2 edges at any point, and it will fill that back in. So it just saw that as completing a loop again. It's creating actually two separate surfaces. So I have one surface here now and one surface here. Okay. Okay, so let's draw a few more shapes. Let's go ahead and try this rectangle tool. And I'm going to pick a point over here, and I'm going to move my cursor. Again, I'm picking, I'm not clicking and dragging. Now I move my cursor over here, and you can see that I am drawing it on the ground plane. Now every once in a while it jumps, right? It kind of like goes into this vertical mode. And I would be drawing it on a different plane at that point. But right now it's going to draw it on the ground, essentially. You can kind of see that by rotating or orbiting around it. All right, so I can pick another point, and again, just like any other closed loop, it's going to fill that thing in. All right, so the question might come up, well, what if I want to draw a particular size? Say I'm drawing a building. I'm trying to create a building. What if I wanted a specific size building? Well, let's draw a 10 by 10 rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and click that rectangle tool again. I'll pick my first point, and now look in the bottom right-hand corner right down here. You can see that it's giving me two coordinates separated by a comma. So if I type 10 apostrophe, which is feet, and then I have to put a comma after that, and then type 10 feet again, and hit enter, it creates an exactly 10 by 10 square. Now it doesn't look like a 10 by 10 square because I'm looking at it at an angle, but if you tilt up, if you orbit up to look down from above, you can see that, yeah, that's a square. All right, let's take a look at changing the camera view. I have this already open, so I'll just kind of close it back up. If you click on the director's board again, under the camera drop down, if that's collapsed, you just click it to expand it open. You can switch from perspective to parallel projection, and that just changes kind of what the lines look like. This parallel means that all the lines that are running parallel to each other look parallel on the screen. So depending on your preference, if this is hard to kind of understand what you're seeing, just flip it to parallel projection until you get used to seeing that. And again, you know, parallel projection kind of works better with some of these camera views that we looked at earlier. For example, if you want to look down from the top without it being distorted, that's kind of a good way to draft things up initially, especially as you're just getting started. If you want to delete something, you certainly can do that. Let's go ahead and create a circle. We're going to click the circle tool. I'm going to pick the center point, and then I'm going to define the radius. And I can actually type in a number. You can see down in the bottom right, it's asking for a distance. So if I want that radius to be something specific, like 15 feet, I can just enter 15 feet and hit enter. And now I've got that circle in there. Now, interestingly, this is not really a circle. When you use the circle tool, you'll notice down in the bottom right, it's asking us number of sides. So that's actually a 30-sided polygon, which is enough sides to sort of trick your mind into thinking it's a circle. But if you wanted to do an octagon, for example, instead, you could just type 8, whoops, not 98, 8, and hit enter. And now you can see that that circle has turned to an 8-sided polygon or an octagon. Okay, so it's the same tool. The circle tool does both. And then occasionally we're going to have to draw an arc where it's just like sort of a C-shaped line. And we don't have the arc tool on our toolbar right now. At least I don't. So if you have tools that you don't see that you need, sometimes you'll need to click this builder button down at the bottom of the toolbar. And then you can see there are some additional tools that we can pull up. There's not too many we're going to go over in here today that we need to pull up, but up here at the top left you have a couple of options for that arc. So I'll just let you kind of experiment on your own with how those work. I prefer this one, this 2-point arc, usually for most things, where you would pick 2 points and then you would define the radius. You can see that it snaps at various locations on that, along that line. So let's go ahead and kind of rotate or orbit back to kind of get a look at what we've done here. Okay, just kind of make sure you're staying oriented to all of this stuff. And now we're just going to edit a few things. So we're going to keep this lesson short and sweet, but this is actually where the magic of SketchUp comes in, is that we can take these two-dimensional shapes and we can pull them up into three-dimensional shapes very quickly and easily. So that's this tool right here. It's called the push-pull tool. You can also just type P at the command line. But if you select that, now if you hover over any closed loop that has a surface, you can see that it highlights. And if we click, and again, we're just clicking, we're not dragging, we're just clicking and letting go. Now we move our cursor up, you can see it pulls it up into 3D space. So I can do that with any closed loop, any distance that I want. Simply just click 2 points. I can also lift something up a specific distance. So if I click, move the direction I want to go, and type a distance like 25 feet, you can see that now it's exactly 25 feet tall. And it also lifts the individual faces independently of one another. So if I click this one, now that one I want to maybe have 12 feet, hit enter, and now I've got that thing 12 feet and 25 feet. I can continue adding shapes to surfaces even if they're 3D surfaces. For example, if I wanted to draw a rectangle on this surface right here, I can do that and it'll automatically detect that it is on the surface. It'll draw it on that surface and create that closed boundary, and then I can use that push-pull tool to pull that out into space, and I can also use it to create a void. I can push it back in to the shape to create a void of that size. So have some fun with that, play around with that, experiment with that push-pull tool, drawing shapes on existing shapes and then pushing and pulling things out. You don't have to draw a whole loop. If for example, I wanted to divide this top of this rectangle into two, I can do that, and then each one of these can be controlled separately. So lots and lots of options that just those basic functions can give you for creating shapes out of just basically nothing. In our next lesson, we are going to draw some stuff. We're going to actually create a little house. And so it sounds intimidating, but once you see kind of the process that we're going to use, I think it's going to get really easy, really fast for you. The last couple things that we're going to explore are move, copy, and rotate. Rotating an object is necessary sometimes. Oftentimes we're going to draw it in the position that we want it to be when we're done, but in some cases we have to draw it and then move it or rotate it or copy it into position. So with an object selected, and you'll notice that my selection method, I had to look straight at it and draw a rectangle around it, because what I'm actually clicking on are 6 faces or surfaces, and however many lines make up this cube. I have to get all of those in there because they are individual components right now. So if I wanted to rotate everything in that box, I would have to select it that way. Picking things one by one, I could hold the control key down and go through and select every face and every edge, but obviously that gets pretty tedious. So I can just draw a crossing window around it, or rather a selection window around it. And I got to be careful when I do that, because if I cross something else and get it in that box, it's going to pick that too. So now that I have it selected, I can go to the rotate command or type Q, and you can see I get a little protractor. So if I want to rotate it around this axis, I can put it on this face and rotate it this way, or I can put it on the top and rotate it just normally, or I could put it on the side here and rotate it this way. So I'm just going to rotate it on the top to start with. So the way this works is I pick my rotation point. This is actually defining the center of rotation also. So I click it, and now I've got my protractor planted, and now I got to pick 2 points to define the rotation. I'm going to pick one on the red axis, and then I'm just going to rotate it a little bit, and I'm going to pick my next point. Now you can see I've rotated it, I think 45 degrees is where it snapped to. Okay. Let's go ahead and move this now. With it still selected, I'm going to select the move command. And for move, I'm going to pick 1 point right here. I'm going to move my cursor over here and pick a second point, and now I've moved it across. If I want to move it a specific distance, it's the same method as drawing a line of specific length. I pick my first point, move my cursor, and type in the distance, 25 feet. Enter. So you'll notice that moving's pretty easy, and you can move a specific direction and a specific distance. You can also move by clicking on the object, you'll notice that it snaps to specific points. It snaps to a midpoint of an edge. It can snap to the end point of a line or an edge. And so if I want to move, for example, this cube from maybe this corner is touching this corner on this octagon shape, I can pick this as my first point, which attaches it to my cursor, and then I can move it over here and pick this as my second point, or the center of it, whatever I think. And now those two things are joined together. Now it created a copy, and I'm going to show you why it did that in just a minute. But you can see that those two things are now joined at that exact point by using that snap feature. Okay. So the reason, I'm going to reselect this one over here. The reason it jumped to the copy command is because I tapped the control key. Watch my cursor when I tap the control key. When the move command is active, I'm going to tap, and you can see it created a little plus sign next to my cursor. And now if I hit the control key again, that plus sign goes away. So that's just a toggle between move and copy. And so now it's in copy mode again. So now if I pick additional points, I can tap control again to make it copy, tap control again to make it copy. So play around with that until you feel comfortable with it. And that's really all we're going to cover on this first lesson. I would like for you to take a little bit of time and play with some of that stuff, experiment with it, have fun. Maybe think of a shape that you want to try to draw. That's usually the best way to kind of learn this stuff. Think of a shape you want to draw on your own. Maybe it's a little simple chair or something like that. But just try to do something with it in addition to the just basic stuff that we kind of were messing around with here, and see if you can get that done. We'll resume next week with another CAD lesson within Revit, within SketchUp, and we'll get into some more advanced features then.